Hello, my name is Cassie, and welcome to my short lecture on limnic eruptions. You may be wondering why you've never heard the term limnic eruption, or why you've never learned about it in any of your classes. Well, it's incredibly rare. Limnic eruption, otherwise known as lake turnover, has only happened twice in our known history, once in 1984 in Lake Monoun, and again in 1986 at Lake Nyos. So, what is it? Well, quite literally, it's a lake turning over. Sometimes called a lake explosion, it's a release of built-up gases, primarily CO2, at the bottom of a lake, all coming up and out at once.
It's kind of like opening a can of soda, except way bigger, way more deadly, and less refreshing.
So how does it work? Well, there are many small things that have to come together perfectly in order for a lake to be susceptible to turn over, let alone actually do it. First, the lake has to be deep enough and cold enough that gases can dissolve at the bottom. Second, the lake has to be in a climate that's warm all year round. This is because seasonal changes in temperature allow for vertical mixing within the lakes. Warm all year round stops that mixing and allows pressure to build. Third, it needs to be close to volcanic activity. This is because magma close to the surface can release CO2 from the Earth's crust and into the lake. When all of these things come together and the lake is pressurized, it's become primed to turn over, but that doesn't mean that it will quite yet. Something has to trigger it. Similarly, your can of soda won't release the gases within it until you pop open the can. Triggers can include landslides, earthquakes, or even something as simple as a heavy rainfall. And when the lake turns, it releases all of those gases and CO2 and is deadly. The eruption at Lake Monoun killed 37 people in the surrounding area, and Lake Nyos resulted in the deaths of 1,700 people and 3,000 livestock. Why? Lake Nyos, when it erupted, released 80 million cubic meters of CO2, which expanded at around 30 miles per hour and suffocated everything within about a 16-mile radius. CO2 and the displacement of oxygen is what makes these eruptions so deadly. Using what we know about lake turnover and how it happens can be useful for scientists to predict when and where the next eruption will happen. For example, Lake Kivu, located in Africa, could erupt, and this is concerning to scientists for a couple of reasons. Firstly, because 2 million people live near Lake Kivu, not just 1,700. And secondly, Lake Kivu has a buildup of not just CO2, but also methane, which means that when it explodes, it will explode. Currently, there are plans in place to try to use some of that methane from the lake to power nearby towns and hopefully keep it from erupting. So how does this relate to physical geography? Kivu is located in the Rift Valley, where we know and have learned that tectonic plates there are being slowly ripped apart. Lake Kivu's circulation is driven by density and thermohaline circulation, which we learned about with ocean currents. Because of the warm weather of where it's located, though, this vertical mixing doesn't happen. Volcanic activity and activity in the asthenosphere and uppermost mantle contribute to whether or not these lakes will be able to turn over. Gases like methane and CO2, which are present in our atmosphere, are the main gases that are built up within these lakes and released back into the atmosphere when they turn over. Movement of the tectonic plates and earthquakes are one of the triggers that can cause a lake to turn over. The lithosphere, hydrosphere, biosphere, and atmosphere all have to work in perfect harmony to create and trigger one of these deadly eruptions.
Thanks so much for watching this short lecture. I'm out of time and I've barely scratched the surface. So if you want to learn more about limnic eruptions and do a little extracurricular reading, here are my sources.